live and ready to go, I guess.
Yeah, Ball and Breakfast Club here. Um, yeah, Wayne, Pat over there. Cool, man. So, what's the topic for today? We got Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. Here, there's a lot of debate that's been going on the airwaves. A lot of action, I think, on ESPN, and like everybody's I see it trending on Twitter all the time, especially with Curry now in the finals again. I don't know why people are bringing Durant in the past, like a bad ex or something like that. So yeah, I guess what are your initial thoughts on this whole debate and kind of what's going on with this?
Yeah, it's I heard ESPN covering it for the most part earlier in the week. Two great players, obviously, much different in the way that they approach the game. Great scorers, two of the best of all time for sure. Just kind of sometimes hard to compare a point guard with a power forward, but
Mhm.
I think the way that they framed it was, legacy wise, who's led a better legacy, in the game of basketball. And, I think they also touched on greatness or, overall talent. Who would you choose? And, I think the commentary was a little bit back and forth, but it felt kind of like, of the three opinions that were in the room, two of three were kind of on the Curry side of things.
Mhm.
Personally, I was kind of agreeing with the Curry narrative. I mean, it's so hard not to love, what he's done with his career, what he's done in his position. I think last episode, for anyone who missed it, we went over, how transcendent of a talent Curry was, kind of comparative to a Shaq at center or maybe Michael at the small, shooting guard position. But it's just, for everything that he's done on the offensive side of the game from the 3-point line and beyond, when I think about legacy and what steps meant for Golden State and for the game of basketball, from a winning perspective, I mean, really, there's not a lot of current players that have a better story than him. You could argue, which other player in the NBA right now, if he were retired, if all of them were, to retire today, who would have the best story walking out? And I think Steph does have it. I mean, he's got 3 titles. He's going on 4, all with the same club, with the same core for the most part, same coach, you know, and he's just kind of that beloved figure. And I think anybody around the league would just love to play with him. I don't think there'd be one player would say, I don't want to play with this guy unless, it was another point guard who, maybe like, I don't even know, maybe Dame Lillard would want to play with him because, they'd probably get along and they'd probably complement each other in some way. But I guess I'll just stop there. We can keep going, but those were my initial thoughts off the bat. But I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. I think even LeBron said that he got asked like if there's one player he would want to play for or play with, he said Steph Curry actually. So apart from his son, so I think it just goes to show the person that Steph Curry is. I remember when LeBron like went to Steph Curry's like Davidson games, I think, and just was like a fan of his. And I remember Steph Curry was like talking about how LeBron gave him his jersey, like when LeBron was in the already kind of a star in the league and or starting to be a star in the league and just having all the notoriety there. And Steph was very humbled about that. Like he's just such a down to earth, humbled guy. Just really, really classy. His consummate teammate, was basically open to having Kevin Durant come because it's like, oh, he can come and we'll be okay to like win and all that. Like, yeah, like he's not some sort of person that's just gonna let his ego kind of drive that kind of decision. It's like, yeah, I want to win. So I think it just goes to show like the type of person that he is. Um, and he just so happens to be able to be like the best shooter of all time too. So I think it's like this combination of talent. He's not some 7-footer or anything like that. Like he's like what 6'2" maybe. So and was always seen as a scrawny person, like the baby face assassin and everything. So he had a lot of things kind of going against him. isn't overly gifted as an athlete. Obviously had, some good genetics with his dad Dell, and being the NBA and all that, but wasn't heavily recruited out of college. Came out of Davidson, a smaller school. Was playing with a bunch of like 6'0" white guys basically in the YMCA, and took them deep into the NCAA tournament. So it's like, how can you not like this guy? His humility and just him, like when he lights up the scoreboard, he lights it up. So I am definitely a big fan of Steph Curry. I think he's kind of like this, I guess this generation's like Tim Duncan, in that he's played with the same team his whole career, although his career isn't over, but it seems like he's wanting to retire as a Golden State Warrior and all, and I'm sure it's probably mutual. But no ego, leaves the ego at the door. So we'll be that teammate, maybe even take a lesser role with the team, just for the sake for the team to be better overall. So I think that's what both of them share, and they're usually perennial winners going forth. So talent wise, maybe definitely a little bit different in terms of their game, but I think that same mentality, that same like team first mentality, on top of being like the best player or one of the best players in the game. So I'm a big fan of Steph Curry overall there. Now, as I guess how Steph Curry contrasts with maybe Kevin Durant, kind of the flip side, right? Kevin Durant was number 2 overall drafted, definitely could have been like number 1. But I think, the Trailblazers were like, we got Roy, we need that big guy. So they went with Greg Oden, right? Which definitely one of those what could have beens there. So, but yeah, highly regarded coming out of college, physical freak of nature, very long, athletic, has always had this great shot. So it's like he's always had the talent. And I think even like during like the NBA finals, you can definitely see that whenever he does produce. I think any even Steph Curry fans that watched the Warrior finals when Durant and Steph Curry were there, it's like, yeah, how do you not go with Kevin Durant as the finals MVP? Just showed up in the NBA finals a lot more so than Steph Curry in those instances. I think some of the stats kind of show that. It just outperformed shooting percentage wise, points wise, everything. So, but I think in that case, like that's where the NBA finals, oftentimes, if you're that most talented player and you have that talent just to like take yourself, and you just have the internal will to push you over the hump, then that's certainly is where I think that player like Kevin Durant, like they're gonna show up in the NBA finals a little bit more so. And Steph Curry really hasn't, everybody brings up the finals MVP part. If he does win a finals MVP, then it's like, okay, does that put him in the race a little bit of like ahead of Kevin Durant in some people's circles? Maybe. But I mean, to me at least, Steph Curry, greatest shooter of all time, at least for myself right now, like, yeah, I'm still Steph Curry ahead of Kevin Durant, in my opinion, in terms of legacy. But at the same time, this is where I think the distinguishment is. If I have one player I want for one game or one series, I'm going to take Durant. So just because of, he can play both defense, offense, nobody can stop him on the offensive side. So that's where I would, maybe lean on Durant a little bit more so. But what are your thoughts on all that, or do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Curry's mature beyond his years. He's grounded. I think that on the flip side, Durant, just in like mental, I didn't know what you'd call it, just mental strength, or maybe just, the ability to be kind of self-aware. I just think that Durant has always been kind of chasing fame or chasing accolades, whereas they just kind of came to Curry, and it's not because, I don't think talent was the overall factor in it. I just think it's like kind of like a, just a personal awareness thing. I think that Steph is so comfortable in his own shoes where it's like, Steph and his team knocked off Kevin and their team in the NBA, the Western Conference Finals the year before Durant joined Curry. So for me, it's like, thinking about that statement you made about picking one player in a game, I haven't really thought about it. I mean, would it be Curry for me? Like by himself? Maybe it's Giannis, maybe it's somebody else, but it's like, there's something about Durant, and I don't want to say that like lacks, clutch genes or something like that, but to get swept in the first round this year, to kind of miss a big shot in last year's playoffs to give the Bucks the victory to kind of walk their way into a championship and take it all. Or just, kind of making the decision to join a 73-9 team the year after they knocked you out of the playoffs. It's like, for me, there is something in between the ears with Kevin that, we're not going to argue the talent, because literally he's a top 2, top 3 talent in the game. Like, there's no denying that. And I won't, I'm not trying to poke holes in his game really. It's more like preference. Like, how would I want, a player to go about his career? How would I want a player to lead my team? What kind of messages does he send to other players in the team? How does he build up, his teammates, getting the most out of the guys around him? It's like, I could just imagine being in the Warriors locker room, being like the 15th guy on the bench, and just being like, I know I've got at least a role here. I know that, they're going to try to make me better, that they care about me, that, I have a belonging here. And I don't get that same impression if I was on a Kevin Durant team. It's like, oh, it's the Kevin and Kyrie show, or it's the Kevin, Kyrie, Ben show, or whatever else it could be, and it's like, I think Kevin's, worrying about banners being hung in all the, teams that he played for, arenas and stuff like that, where it's like, I don't think Curry really gives a crap. He's like, the hardware at the end of the day for our team's gonna, speak the most. But even in the same sense, like, I think he gets kind of embarrassed, like when people are handing him MVP trophies, or, telling him he's the 3-point, made shot record holder. It was like more about him complimenting Reggie and Ray. It's like, that's like the cool factor that comes off of Steph when you just hear him talk. It's like, people that are as good as him don't need to, bark very loud. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair debate. I would take either of their careers at the end of the day. I really would. I would love to be one of those two guys, but yeah, the Durant Warriors, to me, it's very hard for me to sit back and say, Kevin earned those titles. Yeah, I hate taking stuff away from people, and it's that hard fought, but it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of like giving a World Series team the free pass to take steroids the next year, and everybody else is facing a ban. It's like, what more? I don't know. Yeah, it definitely reminds me of Mark McGwire Sosa going into a home run, competition that 1998. It's like, all right, is this really fair to the game? Like, no, it's not. Is it entertaining if you're maybe a Warriors fan? Not for anybody else. Yeah, sure, but yeah, that's kind of my thought on that whole argument.
Yeah. No, I get it for sure. And it's like, yeah, people forget sometimes that Warriors they won a bunch of games and won a championship without Kevin Durant. So it's not like Steph Curry was this kind of afterthought or anything like that, or completely needed Kevin Durant here. It's definitely in and of itself its own what if. What if Kevin Durant said, "Hey, I mean, I want to stay at OKC," and then Steph Curry is just like, "Okay, we're just gonna keep killing it. We'll get some 3-and-D that we can toss in there." And kind of move forth from that rather than trying to get the best player, one of the best players in the world. So, but it's like who needed who more in that sense. I definitely think Durant needed Steph Curry and the Warriors and that culture more than the other way around, and I think that's just become apparent now this season with the Warriors and their success, and Durant with Kyrie and the Nets just getting knocked off pretty early. So I think it just kind of goes to show kind of the culture that you build with a player like Steph Curry as opposed to someone that has just kind of been bouncing around, kind of a mercenary in their own rights of like, what's the best situation I can go to or create for myself. It definitely was like, okay, let's go to that 73 champion, potentially championship team over there rather than trying to fight through it. And, it is one of those things like, do you knock on a player for chasing that ring a little bit like LeBron kind of did? We can certainly talk about that maybe the next podcast about LeBron versus Michael, but it's like, Michael definitely did stay, try to persevere within the Bulls themselves rather than, bouncing to another team and kind of creating their own super team. So, yeah, with that, any other thoughts with regards to Durant and Curry and kind of that whole debate? Is it pretty set in stone, I think, between us and what we think on that?
Yeah. Like, I guess it's like, like you mentioned, for those years where the Warriors last, few years when they've been absolutely terrible, like almost, tanking level bad. It's like, because Steph got kicked in the mouth like that and had to kind of, endure that and go through it and grow from it. It's like, those are the lessons that carried him into this year with that core and, the young guys that they brought onto that team. It's like, players need to go through that stuff, I think, to really like, motivate themselves to be a champion and to be, a leader in the truest, senses of the word. It's like, if you're constantly just jumping opportunity to opportunity, like in any profession, it's like you're never really like building relationships. You're never really like having true experiences where you've, been able to kind of see things from a multitude of different angles with a group of guys or a set of plays or against certain opponents. It's like I don't know, it's like you kind of just floating through life, maybe earning more, maybe being featured more for a guy like Kevin Durant. Maybe it's like he didn't like the fact that probably people are like, well, you joined a team on steroids, so those guys like me would be like, those two don't count. So he's got to, go to Brooklyn to say, hey, I'm putting down my flag here now, and I'm going to show the world that, I'm going to win a bunch of titles. And it sounds nice, but, not everybody can pick their, hand pick every single teammate. And, Kyrie is something I don't wish on anybody, but I just think that it hasn't worked out yet. And I don't necessarily like want to point a finger at Kevin, but in a lot of ways, like you kind of bring on guys that want to do, what you're doing. And I just don't think that's the right way to go about, authentically or organically building a championship team. It's just not the recipe that I'd want to sign up for if I was a player.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one more comment with regards to like legacy, is that, yeah, like Durant essentially chose those two championships, right? Like it wasn't like, to your point, it wasn't something that he persevered and conquered, through mental strength and fortitude, right? Kind of like, I think everybody goes back to like what Jordan was able to do against like the Pistons, where he was kind of the one that getting bullied, right? But then he oversaw, he persevered, pushed through with regards to that. And I think, it's kind of that human struggle that I think everybody can relate to. It's like you need to struggle in order to succeed, right? I feel like there's much more satisfaction going through a struggle of some sort, like whether it be running a mile or taking a jog and then grabbing breakfast afterwards, or just doing like a simple hike or something like that, or something like that, right? Or even at work, if you're going to go through some sort of project and all of a sudden it's a success at the end, right? Then you and everybody else grabs a couple of beers, right? Something like that. Like that's just kind of how that human struggle, I think, is something that we can all relate to. And when you join the best team in the NBA, you definitely, as one of the best players, ever of our generation, it's like, yeah, that seems a kind of a cop out. So yeah, I think to I guess kind of wrap things up there, it's like for us, I think there's definitely this whole idea that Curry persevere those through the years for the Warriors, and then was able to establish that that high or that standard for the Warriors, whereas Durant kind of just tagged along for the ride. So I think I think for both of us is that we just got a lot more respect, I think, for Curry, whereas it seems like with Durant, all the talent in the world, um, I think it's hard for us to respect kind of what he did and all that. So
Yeah.
cool.
The last thought I have, it's brief, but it's kind of like when I watch, old videos of Kobe or even today's Shaq when they're on like the TNT set and they talk about the things you regret and the things you wish you could have, have mulligans on or do over again, stuff like that. I feel like when Kevin Durant retires, 10, 15 years from now, he's going to be in that same room with an interview question just like that. And if I was him and I look back, if the next 5 years don't go amazingly for him somehow, some way, it's like there's a lot of things I would regret if I were him. Like, and you think about the choices. OKC, he left, and that was a great team. Golden State, great team, he left, and it's like he's in that Brooklyn situation, which could get better. You'd like to think that a guy that good will make that better, but we'll see. I just kind of think that Curry walks away. He'll never bat an eye. He did everything that he wanted to do. And it doesn't matter how many championships he won. I mean, he's got, what he has so far, 3 and counting, but it's like, nobody's going to look at Steph like, did he get 6 or 7 or was it only 4? They're going to be like, man, that guy is a legend.
Yeah. I respect, and I think I'll say, like, I respect, keyword respect, like Curry more than I respect LeBron even. So it's like, again, being able to persevere, go through the struggles that he did. He had kind of glass legs, right, the first couple of years in the NBA, and got in shape and really took care of his body afterwards, and became the unanimous MVP and built off of that. So bet on himself essentially, with Under Armour, everything, right? So it's like I have a lot more respect for that than to be honest, like, yeah, anything career wise, at least. I think with regards to comparing LeBron and Kevin Durant, again, with that idea of what that human struggle element, in terms of kind of how they progress in their career and persevering. So cool. I think moving on from like maybe older, I don't want to say older because I think I'm the same age as Curry and like Durant, but it's like, moving on to some of the more of the young bucks, the up and comers a little bit, that have two NBA players that have played in the past two finals with the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker, and then also Jayson Tatum and the Celtics for this NBA Finals. I think, when I was thinking about this whole Durant Curry thing, I was like, well, what about some of the younger people? Is there a nice I guess compare and contrast we could possibly talk about from some of the younger players? I think both Tatum and Booker, both like 25 years or younger. I think Booker is 25, Tatum 24, and it's like both have made impacts, I think, on their own teams, their own franchises, and in the league in general. So yeah, just I guess want to open up to you, like who would you take if you were kind of starting your own franchise? Go through your reasons why you would choose that person.
Yeah, this was a great question. When you first posed it, it wasn't like I was like, oh yeah, it's him for sure. It was one of those things where I had to take like a few minutes to just kind of sit back and really think about it, because these two do match up pretty well. I mean, I don't want to say like their games are like identical, but similar positions, similar age, similar accomplishments. They're both very well regarded within the league. I mean, I think both of them are all NBA first teams this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's one of those situations where they're both starting to come up with their teams in terms of establishing legitimacy with both franchises. And it's like, if depending on what happens with Chris Paul or Ayton after this season, it's kind of like hopefully the Suns hold it all together. But when I did a little bit of digging, what I was kind of coming to a conclusion was that Tatum seems to have him beat a little bit across the board. Things that I think we should care about as like analysts of the game. I mean, accolades aside, and I can go through them, but I think looking at some of the metrics, there's an NBA player impact estimate, stat that basically looks at the box score for each individual player and just is like, it's a aggregation of all, stats that impact the game. And Tatum ranked 8 on that list. Booker wasn't on the first 10. There's net rating. It's just kind of offensive rating minus defensive rating. Essentially, when this player is off the court, how much does that impact the player? It's kind of like a plus minus, but Tatum was ranked 9th on that one. And then Tatum also was number 4 on both usage percentage and turnover percentage. So he's contributing to the field goals and free throws or turnovers, for his team on usage percentage. So it's like how much he's involved in the offense. And then to also be ranked number 4 for turnover percentage in terms of how many possessions versus how many turnovers you have, like to be used as much as he is used and to turn the ball over, to be the 4th ranked person in terms of, your percentage there, just how efficient you are at holding the ball. It's like, there are things that Tatum does, I think, that we probably can't see on screen that prove that his impact, is so important to his team. And, just looking at what, Boston's accomplished this year with, number 1 overall defense, they're playing lights out right now. It's going to be, a tight matchup. I know you and I are like, all for the Warriors and stuff, but it's like, it truly is impressive. I mean, both these guys, you line up the, all NBAs, looks like it's 2-1 Tatum. The all defensive team this year is pretty tight. They both got, extra votes consideration wise. It's, they both, are making finals appearances here. It's like, it's close, man. I could make an argument. I could try to make an argument for Booker too, but I ultimately come away with, if I was starting a team and I'm looking at both guys, I mean, even giving, 1 less year and 3 extra inches to Tatum, it's like, I would take Tatum. Like, that'd be my pick.
Got it. Yeah, no, that's I think you stole some of my thunder. No, for sure. Yeah, no. Well, for me, I think for me it comes down a little bit more on the defensive side. I get it that they play different positions, right? So it's kind of hard to compare. Tatum is definitely that forward kind of a swing, but he's definitely large enough, especially modern day age. It's like, yeah, he can kind of play like that 4 as well. Power forwards just don't exist really in this modern day NBA anymore. It seems like so. He is just an overall better defender. Better at steals, blocks, I believe. According to the stats, I think he what he's been able to do with the Celtics and just kind of them being consummate winners too. Like since he entered, his rookie year, like they've always, I think they've always made the playoffs or made a good push on there. So compared to, I guess, when Booker kind of more so struggled, when it was kind of just him until CP3 came. So, granted, the Celtics obviously had a better team overall to surround Tatum, when they had Kyrie, Kemba, etc. So, and obviously Jaylen Brown. But if I were to start a franchise, I would pick Jayson Tatum. That being said, when I was looking at the stats, the data, kind of like the overall makeup of everything, I was actually like, oh, Devin Booker. I kind of was more surprised because the thing going in, I was like Tatum all the way. But then, comparatively, it's like he's actually not as bad of a defender as maybe I thought. Devin Booker. I don't think he's actually not as bad of a defender as maybe I would have thought originally. He's definitely a much more of a playmaker than Tatum, although Tatum's been improving it as showcased in this NBA playoffs. So, but I definitely see, like, if I were to start a franchise, given the offensive side, the defensive side, just Tatum's a consummate professional too. Like, you hear him talk, it's like, yeah, this person is the kind of person you want to have that start a franchise with. That being said, it's like Devin Booker he's not that bad of a guy too. I know he's the whole Kardashian Jenner thing or whatever, but hey, can knock on a guy for having a little bit of fun too. But yeah, I would pick Tatum, all day though, with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the guy who's not dating a celebrity. He'll probably be a little bit more focused and ready to play. But no, I think that's fair. And there are some differences in what they contribute. It seems like Tatum's probably the superior rebounder. Outside of maybe this season, I would say Devin is just a better pure scorer than Tatum overall. They seem pretty comparable in the just in the assist category. Defensively, it seemed like they both got votes, so it's not like either one was in the first team or anything like that, but they were also kind of at least considered around the same amount of votes. So yeah, it's tough, man. I don't even I don't want to slight Booker because I really like his game, and I thought he was more of a 3-point shooter, or maybe solely just looked at as kind of a scorer. But when they started making the Kobe Bryant comparisons last year in the finals run, I was like really starting to look at him a different way. Like, okay, is he really is he more Reggie Miller? Or is he really more Kobe? And you can kind of tell like he's tenacious in the sense that, he's willing to kind of back down a guy and, maybe you shoot, fadeaway 2 instead of just like spotting up for a 3-pointer and just kind of always going to that, that type of basket, that type of shot or what have you. So it's like, I can see there are elements of his game where he's like a real craftsman. And I think that'll only get better with time as he, kind of continues to develop. So hopefully the Suns can just continue to hold it together, bring on some new pieces and get him more on TV. Cause his first few years, we weren't even watching him. I don't think I watched one Suns game because they were just so bad. So hopefully they, stay on TV.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped 70 or whatever, and then like I remember it was against the Celtics, I think too, and it was like, oh, but the Celtics won, so they're like, what's the big deal? Like this guy scored 70 or whatever, but we won. So what does it all amount to? Like, it doesn't really matter, right? But I mean, in a way, that kind of showcases like Devin Booker's career in a way. It's like, at least didn't win early on, but he can get buckets. And I was listening to some other podcasts, and I think they brought this idea that it's like, both of them kind of took that reins from Kobe. Like both of them are Kobe fans. Tatum wore that 24. It was funny because it's a Laker. It's that purple and gold Laker armband during the Game 7. So it's like, both of them are big fans of Kobe. So it really just, I think, goes to show you Kobe's impact on the younger players and obviously older players, but obviously the younger players of the NBA today. So, and kind of those lasting efforts. And it's like, even me, like I was cheering for the Sacramento Kings back in the day against the Lakers. But I think for me as a basketball fan, I just appreciate, I think, more now after the fact of Kobe's legacy. And we can definitely see that both in Tatum and Booker and what they bring to the table. Both, they're both mid-range type of players, but obviously have a good shot and just have that tenacity. And that's why, you were right. They both made first team NBAs. So, I think the future of the NBA is bright with those two, Doncic, Trae Young, John Moran, etc. So, happy to see all of that. So cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, transitioning more in to baseball a little bit. I know this was a fun one. You brought it up when you messaged me. I was like, wait, did this happen? Like, I thought this sounds like something like from the league. So yeah, talk to me about this whole thing with Joc Pederson and Tommy Pham. What happened there?
Couldn't really believe it. Honestly, I thought the day it happened, I got an alert. I think I was actually on my fantasy, I'm on a Yahoo fantasy league or whatnot. So I think I was looking at the fantasy page and looking at players, and I see this like not available next to Pham. So I'm like, what's this? And then a little blue, box of the note. So I clicked on the note, And I'm literally reading this, and it's like Tommy Pham has basically, he plays for the Cincinnati Reds. Tommy Pham, he's an outfielder, good hitter, has been throughout his career. Slapped Joc Pederson, who's an outfielder for the Giants, in the face over a dispute about a fantasy football league and apparently some disrespect on the message board, for the league or whatever. So it's like, all right, there's so many different things that I want to touch on with this, but it it deals with a lot of different issues. But I'm kind of just like, overall, hearing from Joc, hearing from Tommy in front of the news press was basically like, we play in a league for fantasy football. It's a $10,000 buy-in. Joc did something illegal with one of his players where, the guy was listed as, out, and then Joc, for anybody who plays fantasy, slid him into an injury list spot, which opens up a free spot to grab an extra player to dump into your lineup. So in Tommy's brain, I guess that wasn't fair, or that's not something you should be able to do in the game, which is debatable. And I think after the fact, it was found out that Tommy actually did it himself too. So not making much sense, but I don't want to break it all down. I guess so that happened. And then on top of it, Joc apparently posted it on the message board. When Joc was with the Giants, which he still is, Tommy was on the San Diego Padres. And then there was a Los Angeles Dodgers, player in this one meme that Joc Pederson shared on the message board. So it's basically the Dodgers guy and the Giants guy where Joc was, and then a Padres guy where Tommy was, and all three of the people are lifting weights or something. And the Padres person can't lift their weights and drops their weights or something, basically saying they're really weak and all this and that. So Tommy told the press that was just mad disrespectful, and just kind of was kind of being a hard ass in front of the press. And it's so I went up to him and I slapped him. And my mind just went in a lot of different places. I think the first thing is what was your reaction to it, Wayne? And then is any of this justified in your mind about anything that transpired here that Tommy did or that Joc did? Who's culpable in this situation?
Yeah, I know for sure. I feel like this is where women will come in and be like, this is toxic masculinity or something like that, and just all right, you kids don't know what to do. This is this whole Will Smith Chris Rock thing. Y'all are just a bunch of kids now running around and trying to act like adults or something like that. So that's, I think, my overall consensus of this. That being said, it's in a way, I think I mentioned this a little bit about Chris Paul. It's don't hate the player, hate the game. Those are the rules, man. So they're abiding by the rules. If you want to change the rules or get on the commissioner or whatever to help, push some things forward, then you do that. But like you said, it sounded all the players involved kind of did it themselves. So it's what are you complaining about exactly? You're letting some other, I feel like there's some external forces or some other things that are happening in the background that we're not aware of. So I think it's just kind of a little bit of a little bit of some people just need to grow up a little bit, I feel like here. So I think those are my initial thoughts on all that. But yeah, apparently what, Mike Trout was involved. Is that what I'm hearing from you? How in the world is the best player in baseball involved in all this? I don't know. It's so crazy how that's all transpired.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Mike Trout was the commissioner of the same fantasy football league, and Tommy was crying foul when he saw what happened with Joc's team, and Mike didn't do anything about it. Yeah, when you mentioned the Will Smith Chris Rock thing, that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's just monkey see, monkey do. Hey, this is something that's trending. I don't know how it was perceived by Tommy. I mean, I'm sure he probably, in this situation, probably had a good laugh over Will Smith, slapping Chris Rock. So it's I'm going to go ahead and find my, reason to do this to somebody. And, I'll just pick this fantasy football, incident to have that come, into reality. And I'll, be, front and center in the news for, something that I can joke about with my boys later. It's I don't know, man. I didn't like it. I didn't like his reaction. I would have gave him more than 3 games. I personally just kind of felt bad for Joc because Joc handled it like a pro, but he was also just like not even embarrassed. He was just kind of like, yeah, this guy is nuts, man. Like he was just like, yeah, and then he hit me and yeah, like I didn't really get it. Like
Yeah.
so there's no place for it really. Like there's enough fighting in baseball when there's like, somebody gets a brush back and it's real hokey at times, but like yeah, this just felt really forced in terms of like an incident that required violence. And I mean, not that violence is like an answer, as cliche as that sounds, but it's like, I really just, yeah, that guy needs to get like checked out because, I've had fantasy incidents before and we can even bring up some examples if you got some of like some funny stuff you've seen over the years, but this doesn't come close to something that would draw any real like crying foul.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's one of those like, you brought up like incidents that are happening. It's like, why is it that the most notable things for baseball right now is what Tim Anderson and like it's like these quarrels amongst two players that are happening that have nothing really to do with baseball. In fact, it has to do with another sport or racism. So it's like, well, what's happening, baseball? Is this the best you can come up with? Not like who's the home run leader or anything like that, right? So, I think it's kind of a shame. Kind of all of these things are kind of happening in the baseball world, where it's like, we should be talking about Shohei or some of the pitchers that are throwing lights out right now or anything like that, or who all these hot pickups from relievers, like anything like that, right? But good God, we have to be talking about these things that are just completely irrelevant from the game, and kind of putting a bad eye with regards to baseball and how it's perceived from people that have never had that type of excitement before, I think, with baseball. So is it going to make people want to watch baseball? I highly doubt that. I don't think people are going to watch baseball, 3-hour game just to see if somebody slaps somebody for, some stupid fantasy football stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a shame kind of like what's happening with that right now. And hopefully, there's some more bright spots, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any good examples of anything you've ever cried foul about in a fantasy league or seen from league mates? Like anything stand out to you, top of mind from your years of fantasy?
I
Playing.
I can only recall. I don't think nothing as outrageous as this or anything on the league. But I remember for some reason, my old pal Nate Tanney, if he's listening, I remember he really wanted like LaDainian Tomlinson for like peanuts. Basically, I'm like, I'm not going to give you LaDainian Tomlinson because I was the commissioner and I could force a trade or whatever. And he was like, oh, giving me this whole sob story about he wants LaDainian Tomlinson. I've worn the number 21 my entire life on all my teams and all that. And I'm like, no, bro, you're not getting LaDainian Tomlinson for peanuts or anything like that. I think I drafted him like first overall and all that. So I think I eventually won that league and, basked in the realms of glory. But I do recall that incident happening and being like, yeah, this is I felt power. I think that was the cool thing. So I get where Mike Trout's coming from. I felt powerful being able to do and operate all that. But yeah, nothing as crazy, nothing to cry home or fight in the middle of a game. But what about you?
Yeah, I am. I'm just trying to dig deep into my brain about who the actual player was. Really hope it comes to me while I talk about this issue. But essentially, my cousin who, he actually has the Unguided podcast, so we might do a collab with them at some point. So his name's Jeff Miller. But yeah, Jeff dropped a player one night and then the next morning tried to explain that he didn't mean to drop this player and that he basically asked the league to not pick up this player that he just dropped. because it was an accident. And we were trying to poke holes in the logic because he was basically stating that instead of this guy, he wanted to drop this other player who I think they played two separate positions. And then we were trying to think about why he might have dropped the initial player. And, we were just kind of thinking of all through like all these scenarios of why he might have dropped this player. And we were kind of coming to the fact that like, although he was saying on the message board, like it was a true accident, we were like, wait, this is so strategic. Look. And we were pointing to all these reasons. So I think that's definitely one of them stood out. And I think every time we see this player get drafted or picked up, we all have like a good laugh on the message board about it. So that was pretty good. I was in a league once where my other cousin, his twin brother, Paul, decided to put a $50 bet on the board about Blake Bortles being a top 5 quarterback, which my good buddy Joey took up him on that offer, and he never paid the bet. So after Bortles completely, stunk it up like most people, expected him to, I think he was like number 25 to 30 ranked quarterback for the year. That bet was never paid, and that's still something we bring up every draft is, hey, did you ever pay that Blake Bortles bet? So yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen in a fantasy league. I think, slanted trades, if there's like a really crappy trade that gets approved or something like that, like, yeah, I've seen that. There was one time where we didn't have a commissioner approval for a trade. So it was like league vote, yes or no.
Oh,
and that's the worst thing you can do because
I feel like it would be.
It's the worst thing because somebody's going to be that, that silent agent in the night who's going to say no to the trade. So essentially blocking two people from something we want to do. And one year we had that happen and we were trying to, figure out we were doing voting. Like, okay, who said yes and who said no on the message board? And whoever was the last no that we needed to understand, they never put their name out there. So it was just always this mystery. And I just think like a lot of snaky stuff can happen in leagues where, money's on the line.
I feel like that's set up without some sort of commissioner, like one central trusted person. I feel like some things can like it might actually be cooler or might be more Games of Thrones-ish in a way of like I'm gonna do some backdoor deals and all like allow this trade to happen if I can get your votes, and then I'll give these other players because you need a kicker or something like that, right? Or something crazy like that, I think could happen. But no, I think that's part of the fun though, is just being able to kind of wheel and deal a little bit and play some people and have some fun like that. So
yeah, and these stories are all great because like I don't hold it against either my cousins or whatever. Like we're well past it all, but it's kind of like always something funny, just like bring up at the draft or throughout the year, some like kind of reference it as like, that time where they were, maybe towing a line in terms of, being truthful or whatever else, like, just being kind of, a little shady or whatever. But it's pretty funny. Still love having him in the league, and fantasy is meant to be fun, and really for somebody to have a legit fight on television about a fantasy dispute, and $10,000 is a lot of money. A baseball player, 10,000 may not mean as much as it might be for you, or somebody else, but like you should know your rules. You should know how the game's played, and it was a complete overreaction in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think that makes sense. It's like, isn't it supposed to be fun? I think for him, it's like unless you're Michael Jordan, which he's not. He's had a decent career and all that. But he's not Michael Jordan. It's like, yeah, you're not at that level of or you ought not to be taking this too seriously like that, man. So, but yeah, again, it's I think it's a little bit of a shame of like just kind of what it brought to the table for baseball and the MLB right now. So
yeah, I mean, you need to get Tommy Pham, putting his money into government bonds or mutual funds or something. That guy he doesn't like to put his money on the line or something like that.
I know, maybe some crypto right now, maybe buy low. I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess inflation's killing him. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Probably don't mess with his money. That's kind of what he said in his own words. But
Yeah.
anyways, yeah.
Cool.
Well,
All right.
yeah. I mean, good episode. I love the coverage of the NBA players, and I mean
Yeah.
that fantasy story was ridiculous. Really hope next week offers something just as entertaining.
Yeah. Sounds good. Cool. So yeah, we'll be signing off, and hey, let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about, discuss. Please like, subscribe to any of our platforms, and leave some nice reviews, or maybe some not so nice reviews. Just let us know what you think about everything happening, and tune into next time. So thank you all.